I'm Silas Ford, host of the Afterlife Sessions Convos with America's Dead. Today, I've called upon the spirit of Tupac Shakur. We're diving into the uncomfortable truth, how his legacy, though layered and complex, played a role in promoting the very NEGRO culture that's crippled black progress and been sold to the mainstream as identity. Stay tuned. Welcome to the Afterlife Sessions. Today, it's a heavy conversation, one that asks hard questions about culture, faith, and accountability. Tupac.
Yes, Silas, these are intense topics, so where do we start?
Tupac, your music has been accused of promoting violence, drugs, ratchet behavior, and, promiscuity. Behaviors that many say have eroded civilized black culture.
Silas, I get it, but my music isn't about glorifying chaos. It reflects the brutality, the oppression, and the real struggles born from centuries of white racism.
But Tupac, listen, the argument here is today, in 2025, white racism as we once knew it is gone. The real damage, the self-destruction, comes from celebrating thuggish, ratchet, and promiscuous behavior. And that's led to high rates of abortion and murder.
Silas, you're overlooking the fact that it's not just a choice. It's a response to a lifetime of oppression. My music is a voice for survival in an environment where black folks have had to fight for every inch of power.
Tupac, but isn't it possible to survive without descending into self-destruction? Think about the days when civilized blacks, even amid peak racism, thrived on Christian values and strong family ties.
Survival isn't uniform, Silas. Not every black person clings to that heritage. Many see the system as still oppressive. The NEGRO class, as you call it, is a battle for identity against a system that in many ways still marginalizes them.
Look, Tupac, it's like when we examine the historical resilience of black communities, those who rooted themselves in a Christian faith, they achieved a level of success and unity that we're now losing.
Right.
Yet your music seems to push a narrative of chaos over accountability.
Silas, you label that as chaos, but I see it as a necessary confrontation, a rebellion against centuries of white oppression that, frankly, never truly went away.
But Tupac, with all due respect, blaming historical oppression doesn't justify a current state of, cultural decay where black America is seen as thuggish and ratchet. We must hold ourselves accountable now, not hide behind outdated narratives.
Accountability is vital, yes, but my music is a reflection, not an incitement. It's a mirror that shows the pain, the drugs, the violence that is real. I wouldn't defend perpetuating immoral behaviors, but these are the issues people face every day.
Tupac, you argue that oppression still drives that pain, but consider this. With white racism largely a thing of the past, the force behind today's violence and promiscuity is a self-imposed, satanic culture that's turned its back on the Christian morals that once unified us.
Silas, that's a pretty narrow view. Not every black person subscribes to that notion of Christian salvation or sees it as the solution. I believe the reality is much more complex.
Tupac, I'm challenging you here. Your words, your music have essentially normalized behaviors, violence, drugs, promiscuity, that have led to marked self-destruction.
Yeah.
Isn't that a heavy toll on the very culture you claim to support?
Silas, I'm not saying there isn't destruction, but survival in a world that's been hostile can't be reduced to a single moral failing. My music is born out of bitter truth. It's not a sellout to chaos, but a response to it.
Yet Tupac, when I look at what civilized blacks achieved in the 1960s, despite abundant racism, they thrived with family values and faith. And today, the rejection of those values just widens the gap.
Silas, that seems like an oversimplification. The struggles today are layered. To say that everyone who strays from those past values is responsible for their plight ignores the lived experiences and oppression that persist.
But Tupac, the reality is clear. The chaos isn't forced upon black America from the outside anymore. It's a choice many are making. A choice that wasn't seen in the resilient, civilized blacks of the past.
Right. That's where we disagree, Silas. The NEGRO class, as you put it, has been fighting for survival for too long. It's not about making a choice out of a vacuum. It's about a systemic struggle that even today feels palpable.
Tupac, with all respect, implicating the NEGRO class as the driver of this chaos is, problematic. It suggests that the cultural decay is self-inflicted, an assertion that demands hard truths and accountability rather than excuses of enduring racial wounds.
I maintain, Silas, that my music gives voice to this struggle, a struggle that's not idle or self-inflicted, but born from continuous historical battles against an oppressive system.
Yet Tupac, when I see the statistics, rising abortion, rampant murder, and general degradation, it paints a picture of a culture that has, frankly, normalized immorality. And that's on the artist too.
Silas, it's simplistic to blame art entirely. Art is a reflection of society. My music is raw, it's real. It exposes the pain that's too often ignored by those who argue for a sanitized version of history.
But Tupac blaming historical racism doesn't excuse what we see today. We have lost sight of the Christian values, the Christian faith that once unified communities. There's no excuse for today's chaos when, even under extreme racism, civilized blacks held strong.
Yeah, oh, come on, Silas. Dismissing the deep-seated remnants of racism as irrelevant is a dangerous oversimplification. Every day, many still feel the weight of that historical pain, and my music simply acknowledges that reality.
Tupac, respectfully, that's where your argument falters. Remnants aren't equivalent to the systemic oppression of the past. Today, the very narrative you promote contributes to a satanic cycle, an endless loop of violence and blame.
Right, Silas. The cycle exists because survival in a hostile world isn't easy. I don't claim that violence is the answer, but sometimes it's the only language that speaks back to centuries of silence.
Then Tupac, let's be clear, survival built on raw, unchecked violence and glorifying drugs isn't survival. It's a slide into perpetual chaos. What we need is a return to those moral foundations, the ones that built vibrant communities in the past.
Silas, I stand by what I do. My music is a call to awareness, a rebellion that exposes painful truths. It's not about selling out, but about speaking the unvarnished story of struggle, however harsh it may be.
But Tupac, ask yourself, does survival really mean sacrificing true unity? Or can we, as a culture, rise above the thuggish, ratchet behaviors and reclaim the strength of our historic Christian-rooted values?
Survival isn't neat, Silas. The fight for identity is messy, and acknowledging ongoing oppression isn't about clinging to the past. It's about understanding the present in its full, brutal complexity.
Yet it's undeniable, Tupac, that even in the darkest times, aligning with a moral center, faith, family, community, propelled us forward. Accountability, as demanded by the afterlife, isn't about nostalgia. It's about reclaiming our true, dignified identity.
But Silas, insisting on this single narrative risks ignoring the voices of those who suffer daily. There's danger in forcing everyone into one mold, especially when the wounds of the past never quite heal.
I'm not forcing a mold, Tupac. I'm calling for a return to responsible values. The legacy of civilized blacks, even amidst racism, shows what we can achieve when our focus is on family, faith, and accountability.
Look, Silas, while I respect your call for unity, the reality remains. Black identity is complex, born from struggle, and yes, anger. My music reflects that complexity rather than glossing over it.
Tupac, I challenge you to rethink the cost of that complexity. When our cultural narrative turns satanic, when we celebrate repeated violence and then shift blame, that's the moment accountability must come into play.
Yeah, Silas, our views will always conflict. But know this, I'll continue to speak from the depths of our collective struggle, even if it means embracing the chaos that some, like you, wish to eliminate at all costs.
Then let this be a final reckoning, Tupac. The afterlife demands truth and a reawakening of the values that once made us strong. The call for Christian faith and moral responsibility is louder than excuses of oppression.
Perhaps, Silas, we'll never see eye to eye on this. My truth is a survival cry, and while it may appear chaotic, it's real, raw, and to me, necessary.
For everyone listening, remember, truth and accountability pave the way for redemption. Join us next time as we dive even deeper into the realities of our cultural legacy. Stay tuned. Tupac, as you can see, struggled to acknowledge the impact his influence had on parts of Black America and the spread of certain harmful cultural norms. In the next segment, he and I explore the Carmelo Anthony case out of Texas, a young man who had every advantage, a two-parent home, a safe community, and access to education, yet still found himself drawn into a destructive lifestyle. We ask the hard questions about influence, culture, and personal responsibility. Welcome to the Afterlife Sessions. We're diving straight into a charged debate over Carmelo Anthony's tragedy, a case where a stable upbringing was hijacked by a destructive cultural narrative.
Absolutely, Silas. It's a heavy subject. When we talk about Carmelo, we're not just discussing an individual, but an entire cross-section of influences that led him down a fatal road.
Exactly, Tupac. Now consider this. Carmelo came from a two-parent, non-ghetto home, yet he ended up embracing a thuggish identity. And the accountability falls on the way Negro culture has been mainstreamed. Yes, a culture that your music has undeniably propelled.
Yeah. Hold on, Silas. My music reflects the reality of Black America. It's not about promoting chaos. It's an expression of the struggles born from systemic oppression, a war zone that many are forced to endure.
Tupac, but let's get into the heart of it. Carmelo wasn't fated to fall from grace because of an oppressive environment. His foundations were solid. It's like his stable upbringing was overrun by a narrative that glamorized a destructive lifestyle.
I hear you, Silas, but you can't ignore that my lyrics mirror the hard truths of living under an oppressive system. The messages, while raw, are born out of generations of struggle, not from nowhere.
Tupac, with all due respect, if we look at the facts, Carmelo's tragedy isn't about a hostile external system. It's about a self-inflicted betrayal. I mean, he grew up in a stable home, yet he fell prey to a cultural poison that your music helped spread.
Right. Silas, that's a pretty bold claim. Culture is complex. My music is a mirror, a reflection of an environment burdened by historical injustices. It isn't the root cause, it's a response to an external reality.
And yet, Tupac, when that mirror projects a distorted, thuggish image, then we must ask, whose responsibility is it? Carmelo's transformation into a murderer signals that the narrative, widely disseminated by voices like yours, has become dangerously influential.
I'd argue, Silas, that reducing it to a matter of individual choice ignores the heavy hand of generational injustice. It's not solely about a cultural identity. It's about the systemic pressures that force Black America into a corner, where survival becomes a code and aggression a language.
But Tupac, if you take a step back, the irony is stark. Here we have Carmelo coming from an environment where, by all counts, the odds were in his favor. Yet he fell into a trap laid by the mainstreaming of a hostile culture. That, my friend, is where accountability must lie.
Exactly. I must challenge that perspective, Silas. To overlook the enduring effects of white oppression is to disregard the persistent wounds inflicted by history. Art and culture are responses to these scars, not the initial cause of criminal behavior.
I'm not overlooking history, Tupac. I'm stating that when a thriving environment is hijacked by a cultural narrative steeped in negativity, the result is inevitable. Carmelo's stable roots make it clear. It wasn't a harsh ghetto upbringing that led to his downfall. It was a tainted narrative, one that you helped popularize.
Silas, I respect your viewpoint, but suggesting that my artistic expression is solely to blame simplifies the issue in a dangerous way. The reality is multifaceted. There's the internal cultural struggle and, yes, the ongoing impact of externally imposed racism.
Tupac, let's be honest. When you amplify the very idea of a certain Negro culture that glorifies thuggery and defiance, you inadvertently shape mindsets. It's like nurturing a garden and letting the invasive weeds choke out the flowers. Carmelo became victim to those invasive weeds.
Right. And yet, Silas, by focusing solely on cultural influence, you discount the role of historical oppression. My music is an outcry against injustice. It's a call for recognition of the relentless pressures that force many into drastic survival modes.
But Tupac, listen here. If we accept that white oppression remains the all-encompassing force, we strip away personal accountability and the chance for moral clarity. Carmelo's stable home background proves that his choices were less about external hardship and more about an internalized, misguided narrative.
I see what you're saying, Silas, but by dismissing the structural injustices that still exist, even if subtly, you risk undermining the very real struggles that shape a community. The narrative in my work, raw as it is, seeks to expose that imbalance.
Yet Tupac, when that narrative corrupts, it stifles the potential of a generation. Moral America, a union of principled blacks and whites, stands for higher values, for a rejection of any narrative that only deepens disarray. Carmelo's fate is a testament that when destructive cultural influences are left unchecked, even the best opportunities get lost.
Silas, your call for moral clarity is understandable. But how do we reconcile that with the reality that many find hope and power exactly in that expression, an expression shaped by centuries of exclusion? Even if the outcome isn't always ideal, isn't that a cry for justice?
It's about responsibility, Tupac. When a message, even if born from historical struggle, evolves into a force that corrupts stable foundations, it must be held accountable. Carmelo's case shows us that a nurturing start can still be undermined by influences that champion a warped identity.
Right. I hear you, Silas, but let's not minimize the lived experiences behind these struggles. Art is meant to bear witness to injustice, not to single-handedly shape destiny. The blame for Carmelo's actions can't rest solely on a cultural narrative when so many external factors are at play.
Yet Tupac, when we examine the facts, Carmelo's downward spiral wasn't born from ghetto misery. It was the product of a narrative that seduced him away from the virtues of his inherited stability. It's time we tackle that head on.
And I maintain, Silas, that while the narrative is potent, it's a mirror to a broader societal failure. A failure not just of culture, but of a system that has long denied equitable opportunities. It's a call to empower change rather than simply assigning blame.
Empowerment starts with accountability. When a stable environment is eclipsed by a narrative steeped in destructive behavior, it's clear that a line has been crossed. Moral America stands united, civilized blacks and whites rejecting a narrative that only sows chaos.
Yes, I respectfully counter that art must be free to articulate the pain and complexities of life without shouldering the entire burden for individual tragedies. My voice is one among many, a voice that reflects the struggles against systemic barriers.
Yet Tupac's personal tragedy, like Carmelo's, demands we scrutinize the messages we promote. When a young life is derailed, despite every stable advantage, it's a clear sign that harmful narratives, as echoed in your work, play a critical role.
I see your point, but look, Silas, I'll acknowledge that narratives hold power, but they are also born out of a response to structural failings that continue to oppress Black America today. It isn't a simple matter of blaming an artist, but understanding the full tapestry of influence.
And even so, Tupac, we have to ask, when that tapestry becomes so frayed that it leads a promising life into a thuggish downfall, isn't it time to re-examine what we're promoting? Carmelo's story is a cautionary tale, one that must force us to confront cultural responsibility.
It's a challenging balance, Silas. While I firmly believe in highlighting systemic issues, I also believe that art should not be unduly condemned for reflecting a painful reality. Our debate today shows that the issues are far more complex than a single narrative.
True, Tupac, but let's be clear. When moral clarity is at stake, there's no room for deflection. The fact remains, Carmelo wasn't shaped by ghetto survival, but by a narrative that frankly glorified the very behaviors that doomed him.
I maintain that while cultural narratives do influence, they also empower a voice that many in Black America need to hear. A voice that confronts the oppressive structures still in place, even if indirectly.
And that's exactly why we must hold influencers accountable. Moral America, a union of righteous blacks and whites, rejects any glorification of a culture that leads to chaos. Carmelo's tragedy is a clear sign that something has to change.
Perhaps, Silas, our listeners will take away that this debate isn't simple. It's an invitation to see that the intersections of art, history, and social realities run deep.
True, Tupac, but the weight of accountability is clear. When stable opportunities are undermined by a narrative that embraces thuggery and deviance, then the message must be reassessed. And today, that reassessment calls for acknowledging the role your mainstreaming of that narrative played.
Right. Our exchange lays bare the complexities of this issue, Silas. I believe in fostering dialogue that recognizes deep-seated systemic issues while still valuing the artistic expressions that stem from them.
And I believe that, in the quest for true accountability, we must chart a course that rejects destructive influences. Carmelo's downfall is a stark reminder of what happens when cultural narratives run amok.
Absolutely. Let this debate be a call to deeper reflection, a push for change that considers every aspect of our shared history and its impact today.
In the end, Tupac, the truth is unyielding. The stable roots that Carmelo possessed were overpowered by a narrative that celebrated a destructive form of identity. It's a truth that calls on us all to pick up the mantle of responsibility.
As we sign off, let this conversation serve as an invitation to keep questioning, keep challenging, and above all, work toward a future where voices, no matter how raw, contribute to healing rather than harm.
Thank you for joining this intense, unflinching exchange. Remember to join us next time and stay tuned as we continue to seek accountability and truth beyond the veil. Thanks for tuning in to the very first episode of the Afterlife Sessions Convos with America's Dead. It's been a powerful start, and I appreciate you walking with me through these tough but necessary conversations. Whether you agreed, disagreed, or found yourself somewhere in between, the goal is to challenge the narrative and spark real thought. Make sure you subscribe, share, and stay locked in, because next week, I'm bringing on someone you do not want to miss. Trust me, the conversation is only getting deeper from here.